Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sammy Rivera, and I am the creator of Throw in the Towel, a podcast about boxing and combat sports. In this podcast, you can expect us to get into the latest news surrounding boxing and the UFC. I hope to bring you weekly content with fight recaps and the overall news surrounding each sport. To give a quick background of who you're going to be listening to, once again, my name is Sammy Rivera, and I am a student at Arizona State University in the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. I am an Arizona native, and my favorite boxer of all time is Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, this is going to be kind of a quick episode just to kind of get us off the ground and running. First, we are going to get into the top-ranked boxing card that took place on Tuesday, July 21st, with the main event for this card being Oscar Valdez against Jason Velez. The first fight of the card was between Isaac Dogby and Chris Avalos for a scheduled 8 rounds in the featherweight division. This fight would prove to be a great performance from Dogby. He had controlled the tempo for a majority of the fight. In the 5th round, he did have a point deduction for a low blow, but he would finish the fight in the 8th, with the ref stopping the fight with about 30 seconds left in the fight. Next on the card was a fight in the junior welterweight division between Dennis Okoth and Elvis Rodriguez for a scheduled 6 rounds. This one wouldn't make it the distance, however. Rodriguez hit Okoth with a straight left hand in the 2nd round, and the ref would call it without giving a 10 count. It was a really solid performance from the young Elvis Rodriguez, and he now improves his record to 8 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw, all wins coming by the way of knockout. The third fight of the night was between 2 undefeated fighters in Natalie Gonzalez and Kim Clavel in the light flyweight division for a scheduled 8 rounds. And this fight was a really, really good fight from both boxers. Had a crowd been in attendance, these two definitely deserved a round of applause because it was just a slugfest for 8 rounds. But Clavel had been the more active fighter throughout the fight, and she got the well-deserved victory. She now improves to 12-0. The co-main event featured Edgar Berlanga and Eric Moon in the super middleweight division. This one, I won't even tell you the scheduled rounds for this fight because Berlanga just steamrolled Eric Moon. Prior to this fight, Berlanga had been on a streak of 13 wins, all by way of knockout, and all had come in the 1st round. And he added another 1st round knockout victory with a brutal win over Eric Moon. Finally, the main event between Oscar Valdez and Jason Velez. It was a scheduled 10 rounds in the junior lightweight division. And this fight was about as good a fight as I was expecting. I didn't think that Valdez was going to be able to run through Jason Velez, and Velez proved to be a tough opponent for Valdez. Throughout the fight, Valdez was picking and choosing his shots in the fight, where Velez was pressuring Valdez constantly with a jab and a straight. The two were trading back and forth for the first 5 rounds, and towards the end of the 5th, Valdez caught Velez with his hands down, and he landed a vicious left hook. It dropped Velez, but he would make it to the end of the round, but momentum started to swing in the favor of Oscar Valdez after this. In the 9th round, Velez would have a point taken away for a low blow, and in the 10th, Valdez took advantage of the attacking Velez and dropped him with a smooth counter left hand that landed right on the button. Velez made it back to his feet after this, but the ref would stop the fight moments later. It was a really tough fight, but a good victory for Oscar Valdez. And to wrap up this pilot episode, we will get into the fight card featuring Vergil Ortiz Jr. and Samuel Vargas as the main event that took place on Friday, July 23rd on DAZN. The first fight of the night was between Isuf Kinda and undefeated Evan Sanchez. This was in the welterweight division for a scheduled 6 rounds. And I thought that this was a slow fight. Both of the fighters were very cautious in their approach. I thought Kinda spent a majority of the fight on his heels while Sanchez set the tempo, and Sanchez would eventually pick up the unanimous decision victory, making him 8-0. Next fight would be between Hector Valdez and Josue Morales in the bantamweight division for a scheduled 8 rounds. This was another fight in which one fighter was on the offensive for a majority of the fight, while the other favored a defense-first approach. There wasn't a lot of action in this one. Valdez was stalking Morales for basically the entire fight and would pick up a unanimous decision victory, improving his record to 13-0. Next, we have a fight that honestly should have never been sanctioned in the first place. Seniesa Estrada just demolished Miranda Adkins to the point where I won't even get into too much detail. Adkins was knocked out in the first 6 seconds of the fight, and Estrada picks up another win, adding to the record of 19-0. The co-main event for this card featured Shane Mosley Jr., son of former 3-division world champion Shane Mosley, and Jeremy Ramos in a scheduled 8 rounds in the middleweight division. This was a very competitive fight, and Ramos did not back down from the favorited Shane Mosley Jr. There were some fireworks here and there, but for most of the fight, it was a tentative battle in which both fighters were looking for their opportunity. Mosley, however, started to pull away in the later rounds, setting the tempo for the fight. And despite a solid performance from Ramos, Mosley would pick up the unanimous decision victory. And now to the main event of the night, which was between Vergil Ortiz and Samuel Vargas. I was expecting this to be a good test for Ortiz. Vargas had seen the likes of Errol Spence Jr., Danny Garcia, and Amir Khan prior to this. And early on in the fight, Vergil Ortiz was showing off his youth with his speed and agility, hitting Vargas with ease. And by the end of the second round, blood had begun to trickle from the nose of Vargas. Throughout the fight, Ortiz was showing off some excellent footwork and technique, spinning around Vargas and really just making him look silly. At one point, he literally danced side to side in front of Vargas while he had him against the ropes late in the fight. It was a statement victory for Vergil Ortiz Jr. over Samuel Vargas, and he improved to 16-0 with 16 knockouts. And with that, we are going to wrap up the pilot episode of Throw in the Towel. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. If you would like to be notified when some new content is out, go ahead and turn on those alerts or go to sammyriverasports.wordpress.com where you can receive email notifications. Once again, thank you so much for listening. I hope to have you back again next week. My name is Sammy Rivera, and you just listened to the pilot episode of Throw in the Towel, a podcast about boxing and combat sports.